No worries. I will make sure we are live, and we are. Ring the Bell podcast number 24. We're here to discuss the Canelo GGG card, the upcoming Joshua Povetkin card, and possibly the Bellew Usyk card. I am here with my co-host Nathan, but apparently he has left the room for a second. So I will continue to go over some of the things we will discuss, possibly discuss the Amir Khan comeback, possibly have a little bit of talk about the potential of a Pac-Man Mayweather 2 fight, and then we'll just go over some general news that has happened in the boxing world very recently. So,
I'm
uh,
back, right?
good. I was just gonna say, yeah, how are you today, Nathan? I always ask you.
I'm all right. All right. Yeah. How was your summer break off from the show?
Uh, yeah, it wasn't bad, man. I got most of what I needed to get done, but I still have to do a little bit more. I'll probably be able to fit the show in between that now, so it's not a big problem. Um,
Good.
right. Yeah, it's good to be back. It's good to have you back too. So, uh, let's start where everybody wants us to start, I suppose. The Canelo GGG fight. Interesting fight, wasn't it?
Yeah,
It's a
it's
bit of a
definitely good.
problem. I thought it was better than the first because Canelo made it better than the first, for sure. He came to fight. He stood up to GGG in certain parts of the fight. He did enough to make it very close. I personally had GGG winning by 7-5. I felt that he was too. He's crafty in there, man. It might look like he's giving up ring position or moving backwards, but he was still landing shots whilst doing it. And I think he got scored against because of his previous style. If he'd have fought on the back foot more often in his career, people would have been used to it. But I think people forget that he fought 350 odd fights in the amateurs and he's a very accomplished boxer.
Yeah, I'm at the place where I think no matter what Triple G does, it wouldn't make a bit of difference if they had a third fight. The result would be the same in terms of the score.
If it was in Vegas, for sure. I think if the third fight happens, he's got to demand that it's not in Las Vegas. I think that's essential. I think that's key.
Who do you think
Um,
won the fight in your view? Because I'd say Triple G just about did.
yeah, I had GGG 7-5, maybe 8-4. I actually think he won it more convincingly than the first fight. I think when people go back and watch this fight in the history books, it will be very clear that this was a miscarriage of justice. I actually had a little thing I said about this. There was a. It's a bit of a problem because who's going to want to go and fight him in Vegas now? Billy Joe Saunders shouldn't there.
He should just forget the whole idea because it wouldn't end well for him. Same thing would happen to him.
But the problem is, who's going to want to go and fight Canelo at all? Because Billy Joe Saunders is he's not a knockout artist, so he's not going to knock Canelo out. He's going to need to win on
Therefore, he's not going
points.
to win.
Right. So it's kind of it makes Canelo fights very uninteresting. Either he's going to win on points or he's going to fight a nobody. Apparently, he's lined up to fight David Lemieux.
Oh, for God's sake. Pointless fight.
Yeah, I know.
I'll tell you what, I reckon Mayweather could come out of retirement and give him a good fight.
Uh,
I don't think he'll beat him this time.
I think the problem is no one's going to want to fight Canelo in Las Vegas after the judging. Mayweather beat Canelo once and fucking
That was
got.
years ago. That was 5 years ago.
I know, but they still scored a draw for Canelo in that fight, and Canelo lost convincingly. So, I mean, it does just show you that we've got a guy here who gets very dubious scorecards throughout his entire career. and he's got 2 in a row that have greatly benefited him. You know, uh, it's painful for the sport of boxing in many ways, because what Golovkin did to withstand those body shots and come back in the last few rounds to dominate and smash Canelo up, quite literally smash him up in the last 4 or 5 rounds, was very, very impressive. If you actually go through the journalists, so this is something I did. Now, this is going to be, you know, news to some, and it will be not news to others. But if you go through the writers, Harold Lederman, 116, 112 Golovkin. Brian Campbell, 116, 112 Golovkin. Dan Rafael, a draw. Stephen A. Smith, Golovkin. Asher Markazi, a draw. Brett Akamoto, ESPN, draw. Teddy Atlas, Golovkin. Salvador Rodriguez, ESPN, draw. Eduardo Lamazon, Televisa, 116, 112 Golovkin. Gareth A. Davies, The Telegraph, 116, 112 Golovkin. Josh Peter, USA Today, 115, 113 Golovkin. Sports Illustrated, 114, 114 draw. Dylan Hernandez, 115, 113 Golovkin. Draw from Lance Pugmire, LA Times. Boxing Scene, a draw. Chris Mannix, 115, 113 Golovkin. So basically, The Guardian, UK, 116, 112 Golovkin. Basically, if you go through all the sports writers, and Lennox Lewis, Michelle Joy Phelps, 90% of them scored it Golovkin or a draw. And then you've got 1 or 2 people that scored it to Canelo. So, I mean, people can see with their own eyes what happened in that ring. So, I mean, you know, it doesn't really matter what the result is at the end of the day. It's not going to go down well on Canelo's legacy that he had 2 fights with a drugs cheats question in the middle, and he kind of got the rub of the green for the scorecards as well. It's not a good thing when you look back on someone's legacy to have that.
Well, it was embarrassing, to be honest, the whole situation.
It is. And did you see the WBC president, Mauricio Suleiman, say that?
Rubbish about the what a twat!
Did you see him? Did you see him say that Canelo might have caught eating the contaminated meat in a diner with Bill Clinton?
Oh, for God's sake!
I'm not even joking. It's a real video on IFL TV. And it kind of just makes a mockery of the whole thing when the WBC president is coming out and saying stuff like that. I mean, what the fuck? Canelo Alvarez can't even speak English, right? So why is he meeting Bill Clinton, the serial abuser?
Oh.
He is. I mean, that's on record. He was impeached for it. He never actually left office.
He should have been impeached, but he never was.
Right. Technically, he was impeached in the House, but not the Senate, and so you actually need both branches to confirm it. I think that's what it was. But yeah, it's just hilarious. I mean, what on earth is Canelo even meeting Bill Clinton for the first thing? Was it to help pay off the WBC judges by any chance? Oh my God. And then fucking some bollocks about eating the tainted meat in that diner. It's like, well, why would you have your top athlete eating in a diner when you haven't checked the ingredients of the food?
Why would you have his own chef make him move? Yeah.
Right. Why would you risk your top money man and allow him to eat in a diner that you haven't verified, had checked? Like, it's just bizarre. Look, do you reckon Anthony Joshua just pops into some fucking random sloppy Joe's diner and just chows down? I don't. Exactly. It's just absurd. It's absurd. So yeah, the whole thing is ridiculous. I'm glad the fight's over. They're probably gonna fight a third time.
I don't want to see a third one. We don't need to. Same thing's going to happen again. Canelo will be. He will be older.
Yeah, I think. Unfortunately, Canelo would probably win the third match, and that's what they're banking on. Like, eventually Canelo is going to win one of these legitimately, and
Eventually,
then
Canelo's actually going to lose a fight again. In the next 2 or 3 years, he will lose a fight to someone.
I think if he stays at middleweight, he'll clean up. I don't think there's anyone there to challenge him. I mean, you could say Charlo maybe,
Yeah.
but I think Canelo probably beats Charlo.
What about super middleweight? His chances? I don't like his chances at super middleweight. I still think he'll win one fight.
He's too small for super middleweight. So I think if he was to fight Groves, I think Groves would knock him out. People will laugh at me for that, but I think Groves would knock him out quite convincingly, quite quickly, because you're talking about Canelo, who's a small middleweight, and then you're talking about people like I think Canelo's ideal weight is probably 156, 157, but he has to fight at 160 now. And then you're talking about guys like Groves, who are probably going to move up to light heavyweight to finish out their career. And you just can't jump that far in weight. So I think he'll stay at middleweight, but the problem he'll have, no one's going to want to come and box him in Vegas unless they don't care about winning and they only care about the money. So I think Charlo might fight Canelo in Vegas and just take the paycheck, knowing that he's probably going to lose on points anyway. I think Billy Joe Saunders might do that if his career was coming to an end and he had no other big paydays. Billy Joe Saunders might sacrifice his O to go out there and fight.
You know, just take the risk, get the payday, because he's not going to get a big payday like that. No, seriously.
It depends, man. The thing is, Canelo holds all the belts now, so you kind of got to fight him. But I wish he was kept out of the sport for a little bit. I think you could make fights all around him. Yeah. You got Billy Joe Saunders could fight Charlo as well.
How much does Billy Joe make a fight? And 200 grand, 300 grand a fight?
No, it's more than that. Billy Joe Saunders is overpaid when he fights bums, and he's paid well when he fights good fighters. Like he.
400 grand a fight.
No, he probably got $1 million or so for fighting Willie Monroe Jr., and he probably got 1.5 or 2 million for fighting David Lemieux, I would imagine, and he's probably getting 3 or 4 million, maybe 3 million, or 2.5. Yeah, 2.5, 3 million, because you've got to remember, DAZN have just come into the scene and they've announced that they've got big money. So they have to pay people well to come and fight on their shows. And Frank Warren would never let Billy Joe Saunders box on Sky unless it was for good fucking money. So I reckon he gets paid well, but not as well as a Canelo pay-per-view, for sure.
I mean, for me, Canelo, there's nowhere really for him to go, really, is it? One more belt and then he's done it all. You know, there's what is left for him at that division, you know? He's cleared up probably all the belts, doesn't he? At super lightweight, he's won every single belt, hasn't he? More or less.
That's the problem. I don't reckon he cares too much, though. He could beat Billy Joe Saunders and retire, couldn't he? He's got a lot of money.
But I think he should. Personally, I think he'll go to super middle, win an easy belt, you know, like Arthur Abraham did, and then retire.
We've got to remember that Canelo actually started his career the same year as Golovkin started his professional career, and Canelo's been in there a long time.
Yeah, but he fought a lot of bums in this career. You know, in Mexico, they fight like 20 bums before they fight anyone good.
I am aware of that, but it still takes a toll on the body to be training from like 17 onwards for professional boxing. I reckon he will retire earlier than Golovkin. I think the problem is when you're that famous, like David Lemieux is a fight that will make some money, but it's not a great fight. He'll finish David Lemieux off, man.
But Lemieux is a world-class fighter. Let's not get this twisted.
He's not though. He's not. He's got world-class. He's got world-class power, but he hasn't got world-class boxing skills. We saw that. We saw that when he fought Golovkin, and we saw that when he fought Billy Joe Saunders, and we'll see it again when he fights Canelo. He's the bottom tier of world class.
But Billy Joe and Canelo, I class them as both as elite fighters, you know.
And Golovkin, sure. It's just the fact that he's not elite, so it's not a good fight. Billy Joe Saunders is a good fight for Canelo. Charlo, if Andrade somehow beats Billy Joe Saunders, that's a good fight for Canelo. But like you say, there's not many people left in that division that aren't victims of Canelo and GGG already.
You just cash out and take the loss, and then when thingy moves it, then you'd fight for a middleweight title again, wouldn't you? What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with it is it's so corrupt, and do you really want to feed into that system? Like, my personal thing would be, it would be amazing. It would be amazing for people to make Canelo look like a ducker again. Because remember when Golovkin, he had the 160 belt, and Golovkin was mandatory, and he dropped the belt, and that was a little while. That was a little while before the first fight, and so I think it's very likely if Billy Joe Saunders won the purse bids to bring Canelo to the UK, Canelo would probably drop the belt. That's the truth of it. He wouldn't want to fight anywhere other than Las Vegas.
But I mean, if I was Billy Joe Saunders, I'd want the payday, have the cash out, and then win the belt later on. Win a different belt later on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is a possibility, but it depends on how you.
If he won or lost, his stock. If he lost and he did well, his stock would rise. It wouldn't go down.
Especially if the public thought he won. You're right on that. You're right on that front. So yeah, I mean, it's not a bad idea. I hope he gets the fight. I don't think Canelo will fight anyone that can box, though. I don't think he'll fight Billy Joe Saunders. I think he'll struggle. He'll think about fighting Charlo. There'll be talk about it, but I don't think he'll do it. He's very likely to fight someone from 154 that comes up, because he'd always liked to be a weight bully. So, well, it's just the way he's been throughout his career. GGG's the first guy that he's fought that's bigger than him, really. And he didn't like it. He didn't like that work. He might claim he liked that work, and he might think he won, but he didn't enjoy those fights.
That is a bit weird. So, for me, Triple G, where he goes from here is he'll probably take 3 months off, then he'll come back and he'll have an easy fight, and he'll get into the world title shot when one of the belts are vacated.
I think Golovkin might move up to 168.
I don't know if that's a good idea.
I think he'd beat James DeHale, and I think he'd probably have a great fight. He'd have a great fight with who's the other? He'd have a great fight with Groves or Smith, but Smith's probably too big for him.
Yeah.
And then he'd also have a cracking fight with Eubank at 168.
Oh, he'd kill Eubank, I think. Seriously.
He'd kill Eubank, but it'd be a good scrap for whilst it lasted. And he'd also have a great. He'd smash up. Who's the champion? Rocky Fielding at 168.
Oh, that would be an easy, but that'd be ridiculous.
Well, yeah, but if he was to beat Rocky Fielding, then he could fight DeHale, Grow. You know, he'd have a path back there. But I think GGG.
I mean, in his first fight, he couldn't he? You know.
He could, man. I just think he's also quite old now, and I think if he doesn't get the Canelo third match, he will probably retire. I think that's the most likely.
Anyway, he's had a great career, you know.
Sure. I think he might, because unless he can get that Canelo third match, there's nothing out there for him that makes as much money, and so he might just not be bothered with it anymore.
I can fight to when Marvin Hagler lost to Sugar Ray Robinson.
Back in the day, I can see why.
Have you seen that fight?
Of course, yeah. I have, but I think I think the cards were a little bit less contentious, if I remember correctly.
Triple G is the Marvin Hagler of the modern era. Really, isn't it? If you look at it, if you want to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, he's the closest thing. I mean, both of these guys had a great fight. When I say Canelo lost, it's not by much. mean, the
No,
rounds were close anyway. It's not something to get super upset or offended over. I just feel like it doesn't put boxing in the best light. And now, even if they have a rematch, right, and Golovkin wins, then it's one win for Golovkin, one win for Canelo, and one draw. So they'd have to have a fourth fight.
yeah.
So is there a point in doing the third one? I
Well,
think
I
there
don't
is for the.
waste of time because
And
I
will
mean,
you be able? Will you be able to sell the same fight 4 times in a row? That's the
three
problem.
times maybe, but not four.
Exactly. But if GGG wins, then it will be 1-1-1. So like, it it's not even decisive. It's not even definitive. You should only have a trilogy when it's 1-1.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
as it
mean, you could,
stands,
if Triple G won the fight, then they'd have to have a fourth one, wouldn't they?
that's what I'm saying, and it makes it ridiculous. And then all the belts are held up by two guys for like 2.5 years, whilst they
First
fight
time
four
this happened
times.
was between that idiot Arthur Abraham and who was that other crap, the other German guy.
Oh, I can't
You know
remember,
what
but
I mean?
I know who
Yeah.
you mean though, where they fought 3 times in a row.
He fought him 5 times or something stupid.
Yeah, yeah, five times. Fucking hell. Yeah, it's insane. I hope not, but if it goes to a fourth match and that's a draw, then what? I mean, just fucking hell.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got to. I hope for an end to the saga, even though I feel that it wasn't a good end. I just hope that that is the end now. Um, let's move on. We could talk about that fight all day, but
The Brandon Cook fight.
yeah, Cook versus Jamie Munguia. I was
Yeah.
going to talk about that fight. Jamie Munguia's a bit of a weight bully, in my opinion. Like, if you look at him in that ring compared to every other 154 guy, he's insanely big. And I think he's got great body shots, and he's been well schooled on the body shots and the body work. But when he moves up to 160, he's going to struggle because those guys have a lot more technique than him, and he won't be able to bully them with his weight. So I think he's an interesting fighter. I mean, we've got to remember he's 21, this Munguia.
Yeah.
But yeah, he stopped Brandon Cook very quickly. Was it in the second round?
Third.
Third round, but he'd knocked him down a couple of times, right? So it was a mismatch, really, a massive mismatch. But this is the problem with a card like Canelo and GGG. The undercards are always going to be much weaker fights. So that's a problem. Did you see Spike O'Sullivan get badly knocked out
Oh, I
by
did. I
David
thought
Lemieux?
he was shocking, but I knew he
Um,
wouldn't. Anyway.
oh man, the fact that Spike O'Sullivan thought he was going to fight Canelo or Golovkin and he can't even get past David Lemieux tells you everything. From calling out Anthony Ogogo to calling
Yeah,
out GGG.
pathetic.
Do you remember that when he went to Subway in a mankini and called out Anthony Ogogo?
I remember that. Oh yeah. God.
It was bad.
He's
That
a
was
joke,
bad.
isn't he? I think he's a bit of a joke, to be honest.
He's like an Irish club fighter. He could go and fight in Boston on small hall shows, but he is not a good boxer.
Do you
It's
want to laugh?
amazing. Yes,
The
I always like a
almighty
lot.
Hatman Strikes Back predicted that Sparker Sullivan would win. I'm thinking, what are you on, mate? And you got 44,000 subscribers. Bollocks. Seriously.
Wow. I mean, Gary Spike O'Sullivan. I mean, look, he got busted up by Eubank, and
Oh,
Eubank got busted up by Groves, and so I mean, it's not even a good comparison.
no.
Like, uh, Spike O'Sullivan is a C-level fighter at best, and David Lemieux is like a low tier. He's like an A minus minus fighter or a B plus. So it was
I've got.
never going to go in Spike's favour, that one.
You want to laugh? In messages,
Right.
one of my friends sent me the fight purses.
Yeah,
Quickly,
yeah.
let me quickly read them out.
Go on then. That's interesting. I imagine Spike got like 50K or something.
No, he got loads of money.
Really?
Yeah. Let me just quickly find it. Give me a second. I've nearly got it.
It's hilarious. They were trying to build Gary Spike O'Sullivan up as some sort of Irish warrior in America.
I'll tell you all the purses. Jamie McGee got $250,000. Brandon Cook got $30,000.
Yeah.
David Lemieux got 200,000, and Spike O'Sullivan got 400,000. I don't know if it's accurate.
That is accurate. It's probably is accurate. Because they were trying to build Gary Spike O'Sullivan up into this big name, so that he could fight Canelo, but so they were probably overpaying him. I mean, the fact that he got double what Lemieux got is hilarious.
Isn't that a joke?
It's pretty bad. It's pretty shocking.
Spike O'Sullivan, he's not good enough to win a British title at middleweight.
Who's the British champ? No, you're right. Anthony Fowler and all of those guys. Yeah, but like we've got good middleweights now, so you're right.
Tommy Langford would kill him.
I think that would be a close fight. I think Tommy Langford's a level above Gary, but not by much. I think that wouldn't be a bad fight for him to come back to, because didn't Tommy Langford recently take a loss as well?
He's 2 losses in a row against Wellborn, yeah.
So I think that would be actually quite an interesting fight for him to come back. Someone like Tommy Langford. Interesting. But what can you say? I mean, the fact that Hatman, I don't usually like to call people out, but what was Hatman thinking? Everyone gets a pick wrong, but that is a shocker. That is a shocker. I know Billy Joe Saunders.
4,000 subscribers. It makes you laugh, doesn't it?
I know Billy Joe Saunders made Lemieux look stupid, but he's not. Lemieux's not that stupid as to lose to Spike O'Sullivan. Fucking hell. Interesting card. I didn't actually catch the Chocolatito fight, but I saw that he won by stoppage, and I saw the stoppage. He looks back on form, but he's a lot older now.
Opponent,
yeah, he's a lot older now. This is the fit with those weight classes. When those lower weight classes, when you get older, you lose that speed quickly, and I worry for him getting back into big fights. I don't know.
I think he'll win another world title if he fights someone not as good.
He easily could, right? He easily could. But I worry that if he was to fight Rungvisai again, he'd probably lose again. And there's other fights out there that are very tough for him. Estrada. There's other guys. There's some good guys in that division. And I think he might just be the odd guy out where he's dangerous enough for people to not want to fight him. But he's sort of kind of like, he'll get a shot at something. You are right on that one. But we'll have to wait and see with him. He's got to fight better guys than Moises Fuentes, really, to make a good judgment. Okay. I didn't happen to catch any of the other fights on the card either, but they weren't.
I didn't have the time, so I just left it.
Fair.
So shall we move on to Usyk, the big announcement? You can do that.
Well, I think it's quite fascinating. We'll move on to that one for sure. Usyk versus Bellew has been confirmed for November 10th, I believe. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
I've already got $100 on Usyk against a friend of mine who runs a Facebook page called British Boxing Gossip. No, not Gossip. British Boxing Talk. There's actually, it's a good little channel, a Facebook page. It doesn't do much, but it is funny. It's funny. He posts some good stuff. British Boxing Talk. I got $100 bet on with him. Basically, he's thinking with his heart, and he wants Bellew to win. But there's almost no way Bellew can win this fight, is there?
No, not really. You're going to get your mate to come on.
I'll try at some point. Yeah, we can even. He's probably at work at the moment. I've got a day off today, luckily. But we'll probably watch it together. So we might even stream our reaction, or live. He's got his own little thing as well. I'll let you
Is he
know
the guy
more.
who lives in Cambodia? Is he?
Yeah, he is. Yeah. So it'll be funny. He'll have to pay me $100 at the end of the night, so that'll be great. I love Tony. I've said I wouldn't bet against him again, but this one's a bridge too far, surely. Usyk's but he's better than him in every department. Let's be real about this. He's faster, he's stronger, he's taller, he's a better accomplished boxer, he's a better counter puncher, he's got better footwork. He probably fights on the inside, but I mean, there isn't much. Maybe Bellew's the better inside fighter, but that is close. It's not even. It's not even like if you go and watch some of the wars Usyk had in the World Series of Boxing against the likes of Joe Joyce, he knows how to fight at heavyweight. He was fighting at super heavyweight for all of his amateur career. Like that's what he fought as. So I'm very surprised Tony thinks he can win this fight. Maybe he doesn't think he can win this fight. Maybe he's just hoping for a one good shot. But it's a great fight nonetheless. It marks Bellew's legacy down. Anytime you can fight for all four belts is an incredible achievement, even if you don't win. The fact that you were the opponent in a fight for the undisputed cruiserweight champion is, it's a legacy thing, isn't it? So, fair play to Tony. I hope he wins. I don't mind losing $100 if he wins. I'll be $100 happier anyway.
You know
But
what? Well, I'm not going to bet against. I don't know what to do with this. Prediction. I don't like to get bet against Tony because I like Tony, but I'm going to have to say 9th or 10th round. Still throw the towel in.
Yeah, I think so. I think what's going to happen is Bellew's got a weight cut from heavyweight to cruiserweight, and he's going to look. Because he's blown up to heavyweight, isn't he? So he's got to cut the pounds down to get to cruiserweight, and I think that's going to fuck him up.
I don't think. I think it's a mistake.
I think it's going to fuck him up in, like you say, in the latter rounds 8, 9, 10. He's going to have nothing in the tank, and it'll be over.
Wouldn't he have been better off fighting another heavyweight fight, against someone like, I don't know.
I think he would have been better off targeting Manuel Char or someone. Yeah, exactly. But still, he could probably beat. He's got more of a chance against Manuel Char than he does against Usyk, surely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he could have retired heavyweight champion, and that'd be an incredible thing. But I suppose it's even more incredible. Imagine what this would do to David Haye's legacy if Tony Bellew beat Usyk for all 4 cruiserweight belts. So Tony Bellew beat David Haye twice in a row, then gets all 4 belts when David Haye only had 3. He'd basically erased David Haye from British boxing history. So maybe Tony Bellew has taken
Manuel Char for the world title. That would destroy David Haye's legacy.
So I think Tony Bellew, for some sick reason, I genuinely think that is in Tony Bellew's mind. I think the idea that he would be the 4-belt undisputed champion, and David Haye would be so sick. Imagine David Haye the morning he hears that Tony Bellew is the undisputed cruiserweight champion.
That would finish him off, wouldn't it? That would finish him.
You get what I'm saying? I think there's a part of Tony Bellew that's like, I still hate David Haye and I want to try and win against Usyk just to spite him.
That would break his heart. That would.
Yeah, there's a part of me that really thinks that that's the case. But what a fascinating fight. I look forward to it.
After this, can we talk about another subject? It's kind of adding a little bit.
Yeah.
It's about so what round? I'm going for Usyk 10th round. Throwing towel.
Yeah, I'll say Tony Bellew gets drained of energy in round 8 has a terrible round 8, probably gets knocked down, and then round 9, Usyk probably finishes him off, either stops him or the towel comes in, like you say. I'll go round 9.
Fight choice, isn't it? How much would he be getting for this fight? I think. How much did he get for the hay price?
What, Tony Bellew?
Yeah, how
I
much did he
reckon
get?
he probably 3 to 5 million was the
What would he get for
estimated.
this? $500,000.
No, you would expect if it's on pay-per-view, at
Really?
least 2.5, yeah. And then if it does well, which I think it would, I think the British public has taken to Tony Bellew in a way because he's just like the working working class
Yeah.
man who has done the right things in the sport and just always stayed active, fighting, never turned down fights. And because of that, I think the British public,
because he's won a world title at cruiserweight, he's beaten an ex heavyweight champion. Why bother? Why push it any further?
I think it's just the fact that I think the kind of people who build a legacy for themselves, what you or I couldn't understand, because it gets beyond money. It gets beyond pride. It's about, Tony Bellew. If he beats Usyk, he'll be remembered in the sport forever as an undisputed cruiserweight champion.
But we've got to be realistic. I mean, we've been proven wrong so many times with this guy. Now, let's hope he does.
I hope he does it. I don't want to sound negative on Tony Bellew. I would love for him to win. I just think Usyk's too good. And in my heart of hearts tells me, Tony could win, but don't get too attached to that idea. Just sort of look at it realistically.
The stupid thing is that Usyk doesn't need his fight. He should have just moved straight up to heavyweight. Vacated the belts, moved to heavyweight.
Well, the thing is, he signed with Eddie Hearn, right? And a big cruiserweight, undisputed 4-belter. It's a good fight. It's still fascinating because it's got everything on the line.
Tony Bellew for the cause, and that's kind of wrong. I don't agree with it. There's a little part of me.
There's a part of me that agrees with you, and there's another part of me that thinks Tony Bellew can afford to lose to Usyk. If he bows out, losing to Usyk, he still goes down as a British great, someone who never backed down from a fight, someone who always took on the hardest challenges. So I
don't think he'll retire. Even if he loses, I think he'll carry on.
Oh, I know. I think he'll retire if he loses, for sure. If it's a really close fight, they might even do the rematch at heavyweight to break Usyk into heavyweight slowly. That's something to watch out for as well, because Tony's
him retire when he fought when he beat here. That's what I wanted him to do, was retire, walk away.
Yeah, but imagine how stupid we'll sound if Tony wins this fight easily or something, and then he's got a fight. Yeah. And then he fights Manuel Char, he can't fight Tyson Fury. I know there was all that talk about Tony Bellew fighting Tyson Fury, but he just can't. The arm length, the jab reach alone is just absurd. It's absurd. So I don't see that happening. But imagine if something like Povetkin knocked out Anthony Joshua, right?
Yeah.
You could imagine Tony Bellew fighting Povetkin, right? That would be fucking mental. Tony Bellew, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. I think Povetkin would probably smash Tony Bellew up, though. Too heavy-handed.
Yeah.
Too heavy-handed.
There's something else I wanted to add, was Joe Joyce leaving Ringstar Promotions and going to Al Haymon. But he's still advised, isn't he? I believe.
I don't believe he's left Ringstar, has he? I don't know how that.
He's affiliated because
what happens? What happens usually is Ringstar are the promoter, and Al Heyman is the
He's the
advisor.
advisor.
The same way that um, a lot of the guys on Frank Warren's stable, Frank Warren is the promoter, but MTK is their manager. But manager is basically the same as advisor for
But
that.
I think this is a. I don't know what to make of this move. What do you think of it? I think it's a good move or a bad move?
Can't be a bad move to attack Al Heyman. Well, it can be actually. It didn't work out well for James DeHale, is all I have to say about that. It usually works out well for most guys, but Al Heyman has so many people he advises that it. Are you getting anything? I don't know what people are getting. I would need to know the scene more. But, we were worried that Joe Joyce was not going to have step-up fights and not going
Well,
to
he was.
fight the right guys.
He got him a title, but it was never going to be enough. And we knew this would end up happening. He signed for the wrong guy, and it was obvious from it. And he's also got a decent trainer because his trainer retired, and now he's got Triple G's Sanchez trainer, which is a good move.
Abel Sanchez,
Much
yeah.
better. Much better.
I don't know. I felt Abel Sanchez. This is something we didn't touch on in the Golovkin Canelo fight. I felt like Abel Sanchez wasn't giving the best advice. There were rounds that Golovkin won by boxing, and he won them on the judges' scorecards. But Abel Sanchez was like, "You lost that round." Oh my God! I'm watching this funny little clip. I should try and bring up my screen. Fucking hell! It's a little animated video of Golovkin punching Canelo, and then instead of a ring girl, it's got Oscar De La Hoya in fishnets holding up the ring card at the end of the round. Oh, that's funny. That is funny. That is funny. I'm not sure who makes these videos. I'll have a little look later.
But anyway, with this move, he'll vacate the worthless Commonwealth belt, and obviously we should see. I mean, his next fight, he's got a fight on early October or late September, against a guy called Gova Kyoladze, a guy who fought what's his name, the fat Polish guy who fights like Ariola, Nowacki.
Oh yeah, Konaki had a good win against Charles Martin as well, didn't he? We haven't been around to discuss that. That was funny.
That was a good fight.
Shall I tell you a little stat about Kaunaki that people don't know?
He's frozen off.
I didn't know that, but here's another one. He has the shared record for most punches thrown in a round of heavyweight boxing.
Really?
Tied with Dillian White at 147. And that Dillian White round was against Derek Chisora. Kaunaki constantly, he throws like 130 average punches average around. It's insane even for a light heavyweight or a super middleweight. The guy is so fit, but he looks like a fucking round ball. He's so odd. Can't get my head around him. He's an odd guy. But sorry, I distracted you. What were you saying there?
He's got this Goladze opponent guy he's fighting, who's fairly decent. He's got a couple of losses in that lot, so he should blast this guy in about 4 or 5 rounds.
Yeah, you'd imagine so.
But anyway, we'll move on to our next thing, which was, what was our next thing?
I know what it was. I have it right here in front of me. Yes. Amir Khan fought Vargas, and it wasn't pretty, was it?
Oh, it was terrible, to be honest.
It was good for spots. There were certain spots where Amir Khan's hand speed and his footwork showed through. Obviously, he managed to knock down Vargas in round 2. There was a moment... Yeah, and another time. There was a moment in round 5 where he had him on the ropes, thought the ref might have stopped it then. But other than those shining glimpses, obviously he was knocked down pretty heavily. I mean, people were saying it was a flash knockdown.
No,
not really. It went straight through his chin, that punch. because he can't. He has no resistance in his neck. So as soon as he gets hit on that chin, his whole head spins and his brain hits the side of his skull, and he just collapses. So, I mean, the problem is, if he fights Pacquiao, he's going to get knocked out. And if he fights Brook, he's going to get knocked out. It's just who does he want to get knocked out by first? That's really what Amir Khan. Yeah, I know. That's what Khan has to weigh up in his mind. Is who do I want to get knocked out by first? Probably Pacquiao, because then I can still fight Brook, which is just stupid. The whole thing is stupid now.
Knocked out by Brook. It looks better to get knocked out by Pacquiao because he's a bigger name. That's
sure. But I think there's a chance that Brook fights Pacquiao first, which would be fascinating.
I think Brook would win that.
I think Brook's probably fresher, a lot fresher. Pacquiao didn't look great against who was the guy knocked out? Yeah, Matisse, yeah. He looked good. He didn't look anything special, and he looked awful against Jeff Horn, and he didn't look great against Mayweather. So I mean, there's just been this steady decline from Pacquiao. I think Amir Khan could beat Pacquiao if Amir Khan boxes perfectly. But the problem is, as soon as he holds his feet to trade, even for a second, he'll go lights out.
Problem with Amir Khan, he's like a time bomb.
Yeah, basically.
He'll go. But if he had a strong chin, he wouldn't have so many losses on his record, would he? Can't.
No, especially to the likes of Bradus Prescott.
Oh, ridiculous.
Who never went on to do anything with his career, really.
A journeyman.
I mean, if you get knocked out by B-level fighters, how do you even get into the A-level fights? Amir Khan is very lucky.
How a man with his chin got as far as he did.
I do. You'd think Amir Khan. It's because of it's lucky he was in lightweight classes. That's the truth of it. Because you look at David Price, who has the equivalent chin for heavyweight.
Yeah.
And it shows you can't win a world title at heavyweight without a good chin.
Oh, God, no.
Unless you're Charles Martin. Jeez.
Tommy Morrison managed it.
Did he have a shit chin?
Yeah.
How bad a chin?
He got knocked out by a British, a guy called Michael Bent in 2 rounds, and this guy was a.
How long did he hold the title for?
He had the title for 3 defenses.
Yeah, that explains that then.
Yeah, but if you don't position, he was a WBO champion back in 1992. The title wasn't really recognised when he was champion.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, if you've got no chin, you can sneak into a world heavyweight title, but you're not gonna be a big shot at heavyweight with no chin.
I managed it, but again, the WBO title was nothing in '94, so it's the same thing again.
Yeah, and also those guys weren't that in the early '90s. Those guys weren't 6'9", 6'8".
No, it's different.
That's the thing. Nowadays, if you get struck on the chin, well, just think David Price. Well, he's been knocked out by guys equivalent to Khan, B-level, C-level fighters that shouldn't really be winning against someone with that skill level. But if you haven't got any resistance, I mean, there's a whole nother thing here because David Price is somewhat to do with his stamina issues as well. But Khan is very fit, and you'd think he'd be able to recover quicker from knockdowns and being hurt. But we all remember him going Bambi-legged, right? And dancing all over the place. Like, he's not got good recovery skills either. If you've got a bad chin, it's okay if you can recover very quickly. Amir Khan doesn't even have recovery skills.
This fight reminded me of the Maidana fight.
In a way, but Maidana smacked up. That's the only fight in which I've ever believed Amir Khan can take a punch. In that fight, Maidana actually hit Khan a lot and hard, but Khan was just determined that night. I'd never seen anything like that from Amir Khan before, and I don't think we will again. I think that fight took a lot of his took a lot of his remaining punch resistance away from Amir Khan. I
And that's
don't
8
think
years ago.
for sure. I don't think you should be I don't think you should take that many hard shots off a tough guy when you are known for getting knocked out. I don't think that helped him in his later fights at all. I mean, Amir Khan's an odd guy, especially with him saying Kelbrook will wait. I'm kind of sick of him now.
I think he should have cash out fight against Kelbrook, or no, against Pacquiao or Kelbrook, and then disappear. Because he's only here. He's the same as David A now, isn't he? He's shot.
The thing is, if he never fights Kelbrook, right, there's certain fights that you just have to have. It's like Anthony Joshua has to fight Wilder, right? Otherwise, everyone will just say, yeah, but you ducked the WBC champion.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can't have two Brits in the same weight class near each other their whole career, never fight each other. It doesn't look good. I mean, look at who did Calzaghe? There was a fight Calzaghe never fought in the UK. Was it Froch?
No, it was a guy called Marcus Bayer who never fought him.
Right. And so that doesn't.
He never fought Carl Froch, but he didn't need to. He was already the best shit in the world. He didn't need to.
Sure, that's true. But the point is, there'll always be that question mark of why didn't you fight this guy or why didn't you fight that guy? And for Kelbrook and Amir Khan, it will always be a very big question.
But this fight should have happened 4 years ago. It's too late. I think it's too late now.
It will still sell out Sheffield United's football ground or Sheffield.
But Kelbrook, shell of himself. He's a shell of a fighter, but he hasn't deteriorated as much as Khan.
So's Khan. That's why it's still a fair matchup. Have you That's the thing, isn't it? It's a fascinating one. I want to move on from Khan anyway, because giving the Khan-Brook fight too much time is painful. Let's move on to a fight that has been announced for the Povetkin Joshua card. David Price is going to take on Sergey Kuzmin.
Great fight. I'm looking forward to this.
It is a good fight, but Price is risking it here, isn't he? I mean, if he gets knocked out again, what's going to happen to him?
Oh, God knows.
David Price is he's always a win away from world title contention, but he's always a loss away from the end of his career, one punch away. If he'd have beat Povetkin, he'd have been fighting AJ instead of Povetkin. That's the truth of it. But Sergey Kuzmin, yeah, it would have been a terrible fight. But Sergey Kuzmin he's 12-0. He's from Russia. He's not a bad boxer, from what I understand. He beat Amir. Oh no, he had a no contest with Amir Mansour, but he beat Malcolm Tan, Mike Shepard. There's a couple of guys on his name on his resume.
I believe.
Yes, I think he did. He stayed in the amateurs for a long time as well. But yeah, I mean, he's ranked top 30 in the world, and he's ranked second in Russia behind Povetkin. So he can't be that bad. He's rated above Ustinov, so he can't be all that bad. I think it's a dangerous fight for David Price. It's going to be interesting.
I'll give Price 4 rounds and he's out there. I seriously.
I think he's probably going to win by knockout. But you've got to remember, David Price has a lot of first-round knockouts when he wants to. Yeah. And I think if he hits this Kuzmin guy early and hard, he could win. But yeah, if it gets to round 3 or 4, he's going to have no energy left because he never has any stamina. And so if he doesn't win in the first round, I agree, Kuzmin will probably stop him for round 3 or 4.
On the level just below Joyce and Herkovich. Just below.
Yes. Yes, but I would pick both of those guys to beat Price as well.
Oh, they would do, yeah.
So it's an interesting one all round. I am looking forward to that card. Let's talk about some of the other fights that are coming up on that card, because it is actually coming together to be quite a good night of boxing. Let me just bring up BoxRec right now. BoxRec, Joshua, Povetkin, Bish Bosh Bash, Bish Bosh Bashity Bash. View the event. Luke Campbell versus Ivan Mendy, the guy that beat him. I've said for years that he needs to avenge this loss. Ivan Mendy has actually had some good-ish wins since Luke Campbell. He's never really fought anybody on the same level as Luke Campbell again. But I think this is a good fight. I think once you've got a loss on your record, you need to erase that loss. So good on Luke Campbell for taking that fight. Then we got a fight
3 years ago.
Years ago now, yeah. It was a long time ago, actually. But funnily enough, it was 2015, so 3 years ago, almost exactly. Yeah.
I think you'll beat Mendy comfortably this time.
Oh, 100%. He should have beat him last time. From what I understand, he fought Mendy just after his father passed away. Yeah. So I mean, I think he'll get the win back this time. But it's a decent enough tick over fight for Campbell, righting the wrongs of the past. Matt Gaskin versus Lawrence Okoli. What a fight for Lawrence Okoli. I've bet against him in his last 2 fights. I don't rate Matty Askin as good enough to beat Okoli now. I think a year ago I would have picked Askin quite comfortably, but after watching what Okoli did to the last 2 guys I picked, Luke Watkins and Isaac Chamberlain, I have to think twice about my thoughts on Okoli. He's not as bad as I first thought he was, so I'm going to lean for him to beat Matty Askin, probably 4 or 5 round stoppage.
I'm going to say, 7 or 8, about 8 rounds.
From what I've heard, this hasn't been added to the card yet on BoxRec, but from what I've heard, Isaac Chamberlain, Lawrence Okoli's former victim, and Luke Watkins are going to be fighting each other. But I need to, let me confirm that.
It's true, yeah.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a decent fight. It's a good comeback fight for both guys.
I think he's better than Chamberlain. I don't really rate Chamberlain.
I rate Chamberlain, but from what I remember, he's a very small cruiserweight. 6'2". Yeah, he's not a big cruiserweight. I rate Chamberlain. I actually think he's a very good fighter. I just think this is a bad comeback fight for him. He's been out of the ring longer than Watkins, and he's had to change more stuff. He's changed his camp. He's changed his trainer. So you'd think maybe come back in an easier fight, just have one warm-up fight. But no, he's going straight in there. I personally agree with you. I picked Luke Watkins as well. I think, the loser of this fight could probably fight Matty Askins, and the winner of this fight could probably have a rematch with Okoli. Be quite interesting. So,
Okoli,
yes.
Is moving on. Once he's won the British title, he wants to step up a little bit, to European level.
But he needs one more defense of it to win it outright. So I wouldn't be surprised if Eddie Hearn gets that quick rematch done, because the
British champion, isn't it? Not Okoli.
Oh yeah, sorry. So once he's won the belt, he'll want a nice, easy defense for the first one, and I think he'll beat Watkins and Chamberlain again
to win the belt outright. He could be moving on to European. But I worry.
How old is he now?
He's 27, I think.
Yeah, he's 25. So I mean, 3 defenses. If he does them very quickly, it's not a bad idea, because it will make sure he's 100% ready for the next step.
Yeah.
But if they're taking a long time to make those fights, then he might have to drop the belt anyway. So it's an interesting one. It's good to win the belt, and I think he will beat Askins. I'm looking forward to it. It's a good little boxing card for a. You've got to admit, when Anthony Joshua fights a competitive name, the undercard is usually better than America. When Golovkin fights Canelo, the undercard is pretty one-sided. Whereas at
Yeah.
least there's a few fights on Anthony Joshua undercards where it could go either way. You know, Askins isn't a bad British champion. If he has a very good night, he could beat Okoli. There's close fights on that all the way through. So I'm very happy and excited about that one. Let's have one last little look at BoxRec before we move on to the news, because we might have missed an upcoming fight. I believe we have. I mean, it's nothing big. It's nothing too big. But George Groves' Callum Smith is on Friday the 28th.
Oh, we completely forgot that. What's on that bill?
Not a lot, actually. It's not an exciting card. So far, it's Groves, Callum Smith, and Kem Lundqvist, 5-0 Swedish heavyweight, versus Murad Omar, 4-1.
Because it's only like £10, isn't it? The pay-per-view stuff, or 15 quid.
It's cheap, yeah, but I mean the undercard is there's one other fight and it's two prospects. They've got to build that out. I mean, they can't though. It's 11 days away, so it's very bizarre to see only two fights on that card.
This whole fight is surrounded by controversy. It should really be in England.
It should be in England, but what happened was they agreed to do one of the finals of the World Boxing Super Series tournament in Dubai or the United Arab Emirates. So that's why it's ended up in Saudi Arabia. It got rebid on, and Saudi Arabia won. And yeah, I mean, it's not a bad thing for boxing. It's been a long time since they've wanted to put on boxing in Saudi Arabia, a big boxing show. I remember Pacquiao was talking about fighting there before. So it's a good thing in some ways. I mean, do you remember the Thriller in Manila, Rumble in the Jungle? Sometimes it's good for boxing to try and go and captivate new audiences and bring new people into the sport. But I do think Saudi Arabia is a weird one to do. It is odd. It's basically they've got the money to pay for it, so let them have it. That seems to be
weird.
The thinking. Sad, really, in some ways, because I don't think.
Over there. I mean, even if I had the money, I wouldn't travel.
You can't. No. You basically can't. I mean, there's not going to be any British fans going to Saudi Arabia to watch the boxing. You can't drink. Like, why would you go out to a night of boxing somewhere where you can't drink?
It's pathetic, isn't it? Really?
It's not what boxing's not about getting too drunk or anything, but you can't have a boxing event with no beer. I mean, it's just fucking crazy.
To us, it's ludicrous.
It is ludicrous.
What's the prize pot in this? What's the prize first?
Well, it's supposed to be. It was 25 million for each tournament. Obviously, that's going to have been split for. So I reckon it's probably about 15 million for the winner, and then 5 to 7 million for the loser. I'm not sure what the loser will get, but I know the winner's going to get a shit ton of money.
Who are you picking to win it? For you.
I think it's so difficult. I would pick Groves confidently, but his shoulder, you just don't know if it's healed. Remember what happened to James DeHale after a shoulder injury against Caleb Truax. So I'm going to still lean towards George Groves. If his shoulder holds out, he should win this fight. If not, if he can't establish the jab because of his shoulder, then Callum Smith will win this fight comfortably too. It all depends on how fit George Groves is, really, doesn't it?
Callum Smith, obviously, both fighters are big hitters.
Groves is a bigger hitter. Callum Smith is a bigger body puncher. Callum Smith's left hook to the body is probably the most powerful punch in the division, but
Yeah.
George Groves has the most powerful jab and straight cross and hooks
We know
to
George
upstairs.
Groves can take punishment, get knocked down and win, but we don't know how tough Smith is, really, do we? Not really.
No, we've never seen Callum Smith hit with any fire.
So how will he respond when he gets hit? That's what I want to know. If I think the fight's how I think it's going to go, I'm going to pick him for a late stoppage, but only just.
I think it's possible. I think it's possible because of Groves' stamina. He's got to make 168 again. But here's the problem: Callum Smith is a giant at 168, and he struggles with the weight too. So I don't think stamina is going to be the issue. I think technique is the issue, and I cannot see Callum Smith being able. If George Groves' shoulder is fit, he's going to bust up Callum Smith with that jab.
What's
and
the
I
height?
can't.
Smith is 6'5", and what's George
Smith is 6'4", 6'3.5", and George Groves is 6'1", and it says George Groves is 5'11.5" on BoxRec, but I don't think that's right. I think he's about 6'1". When I saw him next to Eubank, he looked 2 to 3 inches taller, and Eubank's 5'10".
Jesus.
I mean, Mike Tyson was 5'10" as well, 5'11". So, it just shows you how much boxing has changed over the years, where these tall guys are in these tiny weight classes. It's fucking crazy. George Groves, for me, is going to win this fight, but if his shoulder isn't healed, if it pops out again, Callum Smith's going to win easily. So it all depends on how fit Groves is. I wouldn't advise anyone to bet on this fight. There's too many things that could completely and utterly change how the fight plays out.
It could be into the Eubank situation, as some suspect.
For sure. I think I'd be very impressed with Callum Smith if he manages to go in there and stop Groves. I think he could do it. I would be less surprised and impressed if Groves beats Smith. So that kind of tells you who the favourite is, in my opinion.
Do you know what's crazy is that he knocked out a current world champion in one round.
That's true. That's very true. And he must be so sick right now that Rocky Fielding is world champion and he's still... I mean, he's the WBC Diamond, but everybody knows that was just made for this competition. Everyone knows that until he wins this fight, he's not really a world champion. That's the truth of it.
Rocky Fielding, couldn't he?
Probably, but if he loses, it's possible that Groves might want to unify with Rocky Fielding or De Hale.
No money in that.
Oh yeah, De Hale doesn't have a belt, but no, there's not a lot of money in that fight for him. I mean, it's amazing that there's $15 million in Groves versus Smith. It's only because it's a tournament that's going to work out like that.
Pay-per-view fight, though, wouldn't it? If it was on Sky or whatever.
Only just. It would be. You'd have to put on a very good card to make this a pay-per-view fight, I think. It would be a pay-per-view card.
In a situation where he should have been, where he could have been world champion, like 2 or 3 years earlier, if he'd been managed properly. And with that Froch fight, he wasn't advised properly, in my opinion. Earlier in his career.
I mean, he had no trainer or advisor between the first and second fight. Well, he had a trainer, but it was Paddy Fitzpatrick, I believe that's his name. And I don't think he's all that great. I think he's good for young guys, prospects, and sort of CB level fighters, but he's not an elite trainer, and I think that was a big mistake. I also think he was a bit unlucky in the Badu Jack fight. I think he actually possibly won that fight. And I know he got it scored against him. I think it could have at least been a draw and a rematch. But yeah, it's just one of those things, isn't it? It's just one of those things. He is world champion now, and I think he could beat Callum Smith. I think he could do it. I think it'd be a great fight. Let's hope his shoulder holds out anyway. so that we get the best fight possible. And Saudi Arabia wants to put on, you know, if they're going to cough up 10, 15, $20 million to put on a boxing show, we might be able to get some top fighters fighting each other. Hell, you know, they might be able to get people from different promotional companies happy to fight each other if they've got the right money involved with it. So it's just something to think about. But yeah, let's talk about some of the other news that you posted to me, because some of it's interesting. Pac-Man Mayweather 2. What do we reckon? Happening, not happening? What are your thoughts?
I think the whole thing's it's pathetic. I don't want to see a second fight. Nobody cares anymore. You know, it's just a waste of everyone's time, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who's going to pay to watch it?
A lot of people. Who's going to pay to watch it? Well, everyone in the Philippines, a lot of people in America,
yeah,
a handful of people in the UK and Australia. Enough people to get another big payday for both of them.
But
the biggest. What's sad about boxing? What's sad about boxing is these guys fought in 2015, right? And they could come out of retirement in 2018, and it's still the biggest fight in the world. That kind of shows you that boxing, Canelo, you know, what Canelo did with his drug problems meant that Mayweather, like if Canelo hadn't failed the drugs test and the scoring was fair in the Canelo GGG fights, I don't think anybody would care about Mayweather Pacquiao. But because of all that bullshit, I think it would actually now be a viable fight where people are like, yeah, forget Canelo, let's watch Mayweather again.
But can I give you an example? Be like Lennox Lewis coming out of retirement to fight Evander Holyfield. People would pay to see that rubbish, wouldn't they?
But you got to understand this one, bro. Right? Okay. Neither guy has a promotional deal right now. Mayweather is a free agent. Pacquiao is a free agent, and that means that they don't have to pay Bob Arum. They don't have to pay De La Hoya. They don't have to pay anybody any money. They can just keep all of the proceeds between themselves. And even if the fight makes less money this time, they'll still make more money because they don't have to pay their promoters. So from that point of view, I can see why they're doing it. It's very smart.
What did Mayweather make in his last fight with Conor McGregor? How much money did he actually make?
Huge money. Over
300 million or something.
I believe it was 90 to 110 million, something like that.
How much did he make in the Pacquiao fight? The first one?
Between 75 and 100 million.
That's crazy. That's ridiculous.
It is crazy money, my friend, yeah. It is crazy money. In the first fight, he had a check. Mayweather check. Pac-Man fight. Let's see, because he had a check. 100 million.
What?
Yeah, 100 million. No, it's how much Mayweather got. Pacquiao got like 40 million or 35 million or something like that.
Has Pac-Man run out of money or something? Has Mayweather run out of money? Or something?
No. From what I understand, Mayweather has about $600 million in uncashed checks. From what I understand, Mayweather always seems cash-strapped because he doesn't cash his fight checks till he needs them. So he's got about $600 million in checks that he hasn't cashed yet.
How much has he actually got in actual money without the cash checks? Not cashed in.
I don't know. He probably just keeps enough to run his nightclubs and his boxing promotion. If he was to cash in all his money and all his assets, he's probably worth over $1 billion easily.
Why would you leave checks not lying around for? They're not
so that you don't spend them. So that you don't spend it too quickly. That's why.
They have expiry dates.
No, not these sort of checks, not writers' checks from the. No, you could keep this for like 10 years and then go and check it.
If I
As
wrote you
long
a
as
check
that company.
and you didn't cash it in for 2 years, it would go out of date, wouldn't it?
Yes, but that's a different type of check. This is like a payment check. He could cash these whenever he wants, really, as long as the company is still in business that you're cashing it from. Like, if De La Hoya closed down his promotional company,
Yeah.
that might actually fuck Mayweather over, because then Mayweather wouldn't be able to cash those checks out of that business's bank account. So, I mean, you don't want to leave it too long, and you want to make sure that you're not being stupid with it, I suppose. But for people with a lot of money, uncashed checks is a normal thing, a fairly normal thing.
Weird.
Well, it's one way. I mean, if you don't trust the banks, generally, I suppose if you don't trust the banks, you'd cash it quickly and change it all up into gold or something. But
Yeah. Weird.
maybe he just doesn't trust himself to spend it. That's what I think. That's probably the truth.
So, do you think this fight will actually happen? I could believe it.
Yes, because whenever Mayweather says he's going to do something, he usually does it. And he has genuinely said he's coming back, right? He tweeted about it, yeah?
But hasn't he deteriorated? I mean, he looked awful. He didn't look great in his last fight.
But nor did Pacquiao. That's the thing. They're both aging at the same rate now. In fact, Floyd Mayweather has never been knocked out by Jeff Horn. So, I mean, no, he didn't. Jeff Horn didn't knock Pacquiao out, did he? But Mayweather hasn't been smashed around the ring by Jeff Horn. And so you'd have to say Floyd Mayweather's still the fresher, fitter fighter. He hasn't taken the licks Manny has in the last 2 or 3 years.
Crazy. I don't want to see this fight. I mean, do you particularly? I don't care for it much. I won't be watching.
I mean, Mayweather's going to win it easily again, right? I don't think there's any doubt to it. Like, Mayweather's too good for Manny Pacquiao. We saw that in the first fight. He's going to be too good still. They could fight 10 years later and Floyd Mayweather would still be too good for Manny Pacquiao. It's not relevant. You're right. I don't care. It's like watching AJ versus Charles Martin again. Or alternatively, Deontay Wilder versus Brazil 2. Or Deontay Wilder versus Stiverne 2. Those are fights that once it's settled, it's settled. What's the point in bringing it back up?
Bloody pointless.
But it's interesting. It's definitely news. It's newsworthy. I think it will take place, though. Pacquiao is saying, I've got the belt this time. And Mayweather tells him, I'm taking it from you like I took it from you before. So, yeah, I mean, it's probably going to happen. They wouldn't beef over this. I think it's still going to do about 3.5 million pay-per-view buys.
Well, that's just crazy, isn't it? Seriously, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it is wild. It's wild to think that 2 semi-retired fighters could still be the biggest pay-per-view draws in the world. It's sad for the rest of boxing, I suppose. Unless you count Logan Paul and KSI, because they actually drew more.
That's just crazy. It's just ridiculous.
They actually drew more pay-per-views than anybody else. Fucking hell. We do have
watch KSI than Mayweather and Pacquiao, to be honest.
Yeah, I would love to see, because I know they're going to rematch, right? And I think KSI will probably win this time. And then what they'll do is Jake Paul will probably fight KSI to try and get revenge for his brother. I think that's probably how they're going to script that out, because you can keep selling that. It keeps making money. They're all so big on YouTube that it's easy to do. Let's talk about something absolutely fucking hilarious, shall we? Our biannual Adrian Broner update on what trouble he's gotten himself into this time. Adrian Broner has been handed a lifetime Uber ban after terrorizing drivers with his social media antics. Troubled American filmed himself antagonizing the men while they were behind the wheel and posted it to social media. Fucking hell. He branded the podcasts episodes of Uber rides. And the ride-sharing giant has taken action after one of the drivers was left afraid and scared by his actions. Afraid and scared. The sun is shit, man. That's the same thing. In one clip, Broner can be seen acting erratically and shouting, "Up that shit, bro," when he heard Drake and Travis's Scott song "Sicko Mode." He then started waving his phone in the driver's face while the car was moving and kept shouting to turn the music up. Finally, the frustrated driver pulled out and asked the boxer and his party to leave the vehicle. Man, what is Adrian Broner doing? Another video shows Broner shouting at a driver to make a left while his pals add, "He's drunk, don't mind him." So, after accusing Eddie Hearn of offering him a slave deal, he's now started terrorizing Uber drivers on his weekends, man. What the fuck is going on with Adrian Broner?
He's an idiot. The guy's an idiot. How he hasn't ended up dead, is beyond me.
He's fucking crazy sometimes.
It's embarrassing.
The amount of money he wanted to sign with Eddie Hearn is a joke. He's a washed-up, has-been fighter with multiple losses on his record. He can't fit into a weight class properly because he has no responsibility. He doesn't take it seriously, so he just eats fucking nachos with great big toppings of cheese on it and hot dogs, literally whilst he's sitting watching other people fight. So I mean, Adrian Broner's just turned into a crazy guy. He's going to be the old guy in the alley shouting at cats. He's going to turn into that because it's technically what he's doing now. He's just shouting at Uber drivers like, "What's going on? What is going on?" Yeah, so that was the Adrian Broner update. Lifetime ban from Uber. I'm sure he's fine. I'm sure he can afford a chauffeur or a lift or a taxi of some other kind. But it's just funny, this constant news of Adrian Broner making a complete prat of himself.
It's embarrassing now, really. I don't know how he.
How old is he? Is he in his 30s now?
28, I think.
I mean, he's got to grow up, and he it was all right when he was 21, 22. Like, you can get away with it, but when you're approaching 30, you can't be making childish teenage videos of you harassing taxi drivers. It's not a good look. It's not a good look.
But
the IBF
tried to help him.
Sure, but you can't. Some people don't want the help. They're just like, you can see with O'Hara Davis, right? Frank Warren and BT, they've come in and genuinely media schooled him, trained him, and helped him. And he talks a lot better now. He's more respectful. He's on the right path. He wanted the help. He took the help. The problem is with Adrian Broner, he's had all the help in the world that money could buy, and he just didn't listen to it. So what can you do? Can't do anything when someone doesn't want to listen.
It's just the whole thing's ridiculous. I think he should have taken the Eddie Hearn slave deal. Yeah,
I mean, if it's such a slave deal, it would have had him fighting, and it would have been getting him paid. Who's he fighting? Who's he scheduled to fight next? No one?
No one, for a bit.
Yeah. He hasn't even got a fight. He hasn't even got another deal on the table, I don't think. That's probably the truth of it. Who wants to work with him at this moment? Like, if Golden Boy signs him and then he fucking gets into another aggravated assault in a parking lot, it looks bad on their company too. It doesn't just fuck up Adrian Broner, it fucks up whoever puts money into him. That's the problem. That's the big problem. So that's what why would you want to sign him when every week you don't know what he's going to do? He could turn up at someone's gym with a gun. He could fucking be harassing taxi drivers. He could be beating up people in a parking lot. It could be anything, but it's going to be something. It's not good, man. Jesus. Date and venue has been set for Frampton versus Josh Warrington. Now, we've got to talk about this in more ways than one. Did you see Eddie Hearn talking about this fight? Because they're putting on Well, they're putting on a fight on the same date, I believe. Right, November 22nd. Let me check. Sports Sky Boxing. I believe they're putting on a show. It might even be a pay-per-view show. Let me find out. Let me figure this out because I'll have to rewatch the video if not. 22nd of December. Now, Eddie Hearn, 22nd December. I swear he was talking about. Yeah, White to fight Derek Chisora on pay-per-view.
Oh,
December
no,
22nd.
ridiculous.
Right, but Eddie Hearn basically said, yeah, I'm not scared to do a pay-per-view the same night as BT because BT will only get 50,000 buys.
It's a bit of a silly thing to say.
But is it untrue? Are people going to buy Frampton Warrington over Derek Chisora versus Dillian White after the massive... That's the thing. It's a silly thing to say, but is it untrue? Like, I don't think it is untrue. I think BT would be very lucky to do 100,000 buys. Frampton Quigg did 250,000 buys on Sky. Yeah, well, it's not a lot.
Shouldn't have been.
That weight class is not. It's not a big seller. When you've got little guys, only the boxing hardcores and the local fans care. So the Leeds crowd will buy it. The Frampton Island crowd will buy it. But who else will buy it? The London crowd will be tuning into Chisora White.
Yeah, I don't really care much for Warrington, to be honest. I never have.
I know he's put on a great performance against Selby, but I still don't rate him, and I think Frampton probably beats him. But Frampton's been slipping. He's got a new trainer, and he hasn't looked good since he's had that new trainer. So if anything, Warrington might catch Frampton at the right time. But I hope Frampton wins because I want to see the Leo Santa Cruz trilogy. I think everybody wants to see that trilogy. I also want to see Lee Selby get a rematch as well. I think whoever wins this fight, Warrington or Frampton, Lee Selby got caught at a bad time and he had no rematch clause in the contract. I think he probably deserves a second crack at it. You know what I mean? Like, anyone can have a bad night at the office, and that's usually why you have a rematch clause. I think if Warrington rematched Selby, I'd still pick Selby to win.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, Selby was... We talked about it before.
He was shit on the night. He was shit on the night. He was awful on the night. It's the worst performance I've ever seen him put on. Taking nothing away from Warrington, who had a great fight, but it was just two people at the right. You know, Warrington was in his perfect form, and Selby was in his worst possible form. I think Frampton's only got to be at half of his best to beat Warrington, to be honest, but I'm not sure if he's even there. If he's at 30% or 40% of his best, he won't win this fight. Warrington's a guy where he's not brilliant, but he's tough and he's relentless and he's resilient. So if you aren't at your best, you can slip up to him. So it's a good fight. It's a good fight.
Oh, to be honest, Warrington, he's so one-dimensional.
That's true. He's an old-school English fighter, isn't he? AB, straight down the pipes. There's not a lot of lateral movement. He moved more against Selby. He showed something a bit different, but it's not elite. It might be world-class, but he's not elite. I think there's a lot of guys out there that are looking at Warrington's belt, hoping he can come through against Frampton because it's a fairly easy belt to get hold of, I think. No offence to Warrington. I like what he's done. He does the right things. He's a gentleman. I just think I don't think he's as good as some of the other top guys out there. Like Leo Santa Cruz would whoop Warrington, wouldn't he?
Yeah, but Frampton should really beat him.
He should, but if Frampton hasn't been great in his last
No.
In his last couple of fights, it's not been pretty viewing at
It
all.
should
But
be enough to beat this
it's
guy, shouldn't it? I mean, surely.
should be. But here's another thing I don't understand. So it's going to be in the Manchester Arena on December 22nd, right?
Yeah.
Are the Leeds fans going to want to travel to Manchester? Manchester and Leeds hate each other.
They'll still go.
They'll still go, but you won't get as many as if it was in. I think if they put this in Leeds football stadium, it would do more. It would fill out surely. Like, it doesn't make sense to do this fight in the winter inside. I think this is a summer fight outdoors, but it's crazy to me because they could have done it in Ireland at a football stadium as well. I mean, it would have sold. Like, it's crazy to me to limit the attendance to an arena rather than a stadium, because it's not going to do well on pay-per-view. So they need as many tickets sold as possible, in my view.
It's going to be a crazy night.
It is a crazy night trying to fucking watch the heavyweight action, because there's December 22nd for Sky is going to be a big night of boxing. Whenever it's a Dillian White pay-per-view, the undercard is always stacked because they don't have to pay Dillian White the same money they pay AJ or, some of the bigger stars. So it's going to be a good undercard. I think Sky's going to smash BT out of the water.
Yeah, I mean, the whole BT thing, weird.
Yeah, and the Queensbury Box Nation thing, I know. So, I mean, is anyone even subscribed to Box Nation anymore? Because you can just watch it all on BT.
It shouldn't be, but...
Seems like a waste of money now because all the fights are on BT, all the good ones, the ones from abroad, everything. Box Nation seems secondary.
I mean, David Price's fight against Sean Turner was meant to be on them. That's been
But it wasn't in the end. Yeah. Who is Sean Turner fighting now? Dave Allen?
No, he's pulled out.
Oh, who's Dave Allen fighting then? No one.
When's Dave Allen fighting?
Let's check. He was supposed to be fighting soon. No. He's going to be fighting in Newcastle on the 13th of next month. But there's no one announced yet. It was supposed to be Sean Turner, but obviously he's pulled out.
It should be a British title for him, really, shouldn't it? His next fight. I mean, at Dave Allen, really.
Yeah. I mean, this is a good little card, mate. You've got Lewis Ritson versus Francesco Patera. It's a decent fight for the vacant EBU European title. Yeah. Glenn Foote versus Robbie Davies Jr. Good Commonwealth fight. It's for the British and the Commonwealth, actually, that fight. Yeah. Simon Vallily, the guy who, the cruiserweight who tried to fight against, who did he lose to that was a really, really top fighter? Bradis. Yeah, he went in against Bradis too early, but he's still got a good record. He's fighting Craig Glover, who's not a bad little cruiserweight himself. 8-1 with his only defeat coming to Jake Bonelli, who's gone on since then. I think Jake Bonelli's not fought since then. That's very odd. But yeah, so it's a good little card actually coming together, that one. It's interesting. There's basically boxing every week from now until Christmas.
Jesus.
Yeah. And sometimes there's 2 cards, 3 cards a night. You saw something we haven't talked about yet. You saw Al Heyman got a new deal with ESPN, right?
I did, yeah.
Sorry, not ESPN. Not ESPN. Sorry, PBC got a new deal with Fox, I believe. Yeah. It's huge. It's even bigger than Eddie Hearn's DAZN deal.
You also know that Disney own Fox now.
Sorry?
Disney own Fox.
Who?
Disney.
Yeah, Disney, they don't own it yet. There's a merger taking place. and I believe they will own Fox very soon. Yes.
Crazy, and the whole deal.
Disney and Comcast could be. The whole thing is, there's a big fight between Fox and Comcast going on, and so it is all very very crazy. But for now, it's pretty good for Fox and Disney. It's looking like it will go through, but it's still only a proposed acquisition. It's not actually finished yet. They announced an agreement for Fox to buy 52.4 billion. Jesus. It's not good though, because Disney are going to basically own everything. They want to try and take over UK Sky PLC. They want to take over the Asian satellite group called Star. They've got a 30% stake in Hulu already. So Fox, Disney are trying to basically buy out everyone. It's not good. But I don't think it'll affect the boxing too much, because Fox Sports still has they still have their money. They still have their, they've still got to put on content. They've still got to run a good show. But it basically just means more competition. I think the sad thing is we have Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn in the UK who won't work with each other. And I think it could get to a point where Al Heyman and Eddie Hearn are sort of like the American version, where the DAZN fighters don't go on PBC, PBC fighters don't go on DAZN, and it's very separate. I think that's the sad thing about this deal.
This DAZN deal that Eddie Hearn's got, I think it will backfire in about 3 or 4 years. I think he'll be back here. I think he should have just. I
don't. If you actually look at what's happening to TV, it's dying. Cable's dying, digital's dying. The way forward is streaming and the internet. And DAZN is a streaming platform, and all of the younger generations are going to go for that because it's what they understand. Look at Netflix. Netflix brought all those TV shows, movies together, and it's taken over. And I think DAZN is slowly going to do that. Sport is a bit slower to change the minds of people.
If DAZN offered everything for, like, say, £15 a month or £20 a month, I'd pay.
Yes, that's what they do in America, and it will come to the UK soon. They've already got it in Canada, parts of Europe, places in Asia. They're slowly rolling it out to everywhere, and I think DAZN will be the new way that you buy a sports package. I think they're going to get hold of. At the moment, they can't get hold of the ice hockey and the basketball and the NFL and football, because those are already owned by Sky, Fox, NBC. But in a few years, I think instead of charging $15, it will be like $25 or $30 a month, but they'll have every sport that you want to watch. And I think that will be the new way of doing it.
About what we pay for and watch, aren't we? There's certain fights we won't watch, some lower level stuff we won't watch.
Sure. If you had a streaming service, but if you had a streaming service with all of it encompassed into one place, like hell, DAZN are a platform, PBC are a boxing publisher and promotional company. DAZN might even buy PBC to be on DAZN one day. You never know.
It's all crazy.
It is all crazy. I think streaming is the way forward, though. You've seen it with movies, you've seen it with TV shows. I think sports will move there, and I think DAZN is a good start. I think it will probably be very successful, in my opinion. I don't think Eddie Hearn will run it forever. I think he'll probably get it to where it needs to be, and then sort of hand it over to Frank Smith and some of the other people at Matchroom, because I think his heart is far more in British boxing, but I think he will make it a success. That's my personal opinion. That's my personal opinion on that.
I think it could get messy in America. I mean, he's got the UK market tied up for another 10 years.
Yes, I think he'll have the US market sewed up for a little while. I think you've got good competition. It's good in a way because Eddie Hearn had the most money, but now he doesn't have the most money. It's back in Al Heyman's purse. Is that going to make Eddie Hearn more motivated? Probably. He likes a good fight. He likes to scrap. So I think it's good news for boxing all round, and we're going to see some serious fights made with some serious money put into the sport over the next 5-6 years. One last thing I just very quickly wanted to talk about before we go our separate ways for the day. Jack Catterall versus O'Hara Davis, 2 weeks from now. Who have you got?
Catterall.
Oh, that's very interesting. I have O'Hara Davis because I think he's a bit too powerful for Catterall. I think if he catches him, it's probably over. And I think O'Hara's settled down now. I don't think he's got too much going on outside of the ring that's distracting him. I think he's more focused. So, but it's a great fight. It's a very close fight. Jack Catterall could easily come out victorious. It's for the WBO Intercontinental Super Lightweight title.
And the world ranking.
There's actually, obviously you'll be in the top 15 if you win that. Nicola Adams is in another fight against Isabel Milan on that card. But the fight I'm actually looking forward to, like the sleeper fight on this card, there's two of them. Leon Woodstock is fighting Archie Sharp for the WBO European Super Featherweight title. Leon Woodstock's a fascinating offensive fighter, but he's poor with his defense. Archie Sharp's 13-0. Probably a bit more defensively sound, but has fought absolute nobodies on the way to getting to this fight. So it's hard to know too much about him. And then the other big fight, and this is a good step up for Daniel Dubois, in my opinion. He's fighting Kevin Kingpin Johnson.
Good fight.
Obviously, Johnson's coming off 2 losses to Milas and Andy Ruiz Jr., but they're top. Andy Ruiz Jr. is an elite guy. Peter Milas is a good...
He's a good fighter, prospect.
He's a good up-and-coming prospect. Obviously, he had the win against Pianetta in 2017. So it's an interesting fight for Dubois. I don't think he'll be able to knock Kevin Johnson out quickly. I think Kevin Johnson's going to take him rounds, and that's what we want to see from Daniel Dubois. Can he win a fight by winning rounds rather than by just knockout every single time? So it's a good little step up, good little card from Frank Warren, that one, I think. Not a bad one. That's Saturday the 6th of October. And this is what I mean. From here, on the same night, we've got Soren Visai in a fight in America as well. So there's just so much boxing now. It's a good time to come back. I'm glad we've picked up the podcast again, and we'll cover it all as it unfolds.
I'm going to give a prediction for the Kevin Johnson fight. I think Kevin Johnson will get stopped in 7 rounds.
Yeah, that's what I think. 6 or 7 rounds, something like that. That's probably very realistic, very fair.
In 2 rounds, that was put a statement out, wouldn't
it? It would. If he knocked him out in 1 or 2 rounds, it's a big display. I do hope he gets through that fight comfortably, and then we can see him step it up again. Just slowly does it because he's a young heavyweight, but the time to strike in the heavyweight division is now, really. You want to get these guys up and contending before Wilder retires, before too many of these top guys retire, really. The big money is in fighting AJ, Wilder, Dillian White. That's pretty much it. Though Povetkin, maybe there's some good money in that, even if he loses to AJ. So some of these guys that produce the biggest paychecks won't be in the heavyweight division for long. So I do think there's something to be said for rushing Dubois a little bit and rushing Joe Joyce a lot more than he's been rushed recently as well. So, yeah. Interesting stuff, man. Shall we wrap it up there unless you've got...
I can go on a bit longer. I'm not fussed.
Sure. Well, I didn't have any more topics to cover for today, though. That's unless you had something else you wanted to add.
Let me think. God, what else has happened in recent weeks that we haven't covered in the last 6 weeks? We haven't covered Tyson Fury's comeback, have we? His
No, his second fight. Not as bad as the first fight, but he's still not. He's not. We haven't talked about him potentially fighting Deontay Wilder. We'll quickly just. Yeah, we'll discuss that now. He still looks fat, a little bit fat. He still looks a little bit sluggish, a little bit slow, and he is not ready to fight Deontay Wilder in December. He really shouldn't take this fight. If it's just to spite Anthony Joshua, it's so stupid. He's gonna bite his nose off to spite his face here, really. He'll get paid well, but he won't win a fight against a fresh, competitive, constantly active Wilder when he's had 2 terrible fights. It would be like sticking David Haye in with Joshua after fighting Arnold the Corn Snake Cobra. Do you know what I mean? Though it's equivalent. It is equivalent. And you'd never have said David Haye was ready for a world title shot after those 2 fights. So surely Tyson Fury can't be either. But I hope Tyson Fury does it, but I think it's a bad fight for him at this moment.
And also regarding David Haye, if you took the David Haye from 2009, he'd get beaten by all the top guys.
Sure, but I mean, specifically, I was referring to his 2 comeback fights,
which wasted everybody's time.
Yeah, exactly. Tyson Fury's kind of done the same with these 2 comeback fights. At least Pianetta was a step up, I suppose.
Yeah.
Pianetta is better than he would beat the 2 guys David Haye fought, for sure. So we do have to give Tyson Fury that much credit.
Would be the Anthony Joshua fight.
The problem is he's not ready for any of those fights yet. The fight for Tyson Fury, Tyson Fury's next fight should have been Tony Bellew, Manuel Charr. Let me look at the heavyweight top ranked guys, right? Kanaki, exactly. Hrgovic, that prospect that's been doing.
That wouldn't be any good. That would be crazy.
You think so?
At this time, yeah, Hrgovic. It'd be a weird fight. He's got
maybe in 1 or 2 more fights then. But I think there's guys he could have beaten. Brazil, he could have fought Brazil. He could have fought not in his next fight, but he could have fought Parker, Bryant Jennings. Obviously, Manuel Charr, we've said, Marco Huck. Before Charles Martin lost to Kaunaki, that wouldn't have been a bad fight. Adamek, Andy Ruiz Jr. There's a lot of guys out there. Johan Duhaupas, that he's going to beat them, and they're going to get him back in shape and back into position for a world title shot against one of the top guys.
To be honest, if you've been out the ring 2.5 years like he has, and he's not going to be the same fighter he ever was, is he? Let's be honest. I think he's lost.
He could be. He could still get back there, but he can't fight top 75 guys and then fight the world's number 1.
Makes no
sense. You have to fight like a top 30 guy. Manuel Charr's number 30. Sergei Kuzmin, who David Price is fighting, is number 29. Erkan Tepa's number 28. Lucas Brown's number 26. One of those guys first. Then you go up 1 more step to a Bryant Jennings, not Chisora again.
The interim champion. Oh yeah,
exactly. There's a load of guys. I saw this. The WBA made a fool of themselves, didn't they?
Made a 3rd world title.
Yeah, 3rd heavyweight world title. So they made an interim world title for the WBA heavyweight division, even though they ordered AJ to fight Povetkin and AJ took the fight. Surely I personally think Eddie Hearn could sue the WBA for damages, because when you make another title, you lessen the value of the major title. Yeah. And so when you're negotiating for a fight, that WBA title becomes worth less money. And I'm sure it's against the WBA rules to create an interim belt whilst the current champion is active. It's just crazy. The 2 current champions, both of them,
is because of the fight between Manuel Charr. We didn't talk about that fight. That's in 2 weeks' time.
Yes, but the thing is, the regular belt is active. Manuel Char will be fighting, and the super belt is active. The AJ will be fighting. So what is their reasoning? Like what? They didn't actually give any good, solid rationale for why they needed an interim. You should only need an interim when the main guy's injured. That's it. Like you don't create an interim just for the sake of it because you want another belt.
You've got a guy who hasn't fought for 4 years, who's 100 years old, fighting for a world title he doesn't deserve.
Well, that's to do with a lawsuit. That's because they owe Oquendo. They owe Oquendo the same way they owed Manuel Char. Somehow they owed him a world title shot, and he threatened to sue them if he didn't get it. And that's the same thing that's happening. That's the same thing that happened with Ortiz and Wilder. And it's going to be the same thing that would happen if Oquendo didn't get his shot, because they promised him one like 2 years ago.
But we've got a guy who's barely European level, a world champion.
Sure. I would say Manuel Char probably is European level. But
only just.
He'd be in a tough fight with Adjit Caballel.
He'd lose. I think he'd lose. I think Caballel.
I think it'd be a close fight. I think Adjit Caballel looked good against Derek Chisora, but I think Derek Chisora just was so unmotivated for that fight. I think even Yakov Gospic would have beaten Derek Chisora in that fight, to be honest with you.
But for me, when I look at Manuel Char, he's got to beat this Fres Oquendo guy. I mean, Fres Oquendo was a decent fighter in his day, but he hasn't fought for 4 years, and he's been fighting since 1997. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think what Eddie Hearn has to do is get Dave Allen a shot at Fres Oquendo or Manuel Char, because that's a world title that Dave Allen can actually win.
Oh dear! But why the hell did I mean, what was BJ Flores doing in there?
That's a great question. What had he done?
Nothing. He's done nothing.
I know he hadn't even fought at heavyweight. I don't believe. Let me check that.
He had 2 fights at heavyweight, I believe.
Yes. So he fought for the vacant WBA, NABA heavyweight title against Jeremy Bates, and then he beat a guy called Nick Guivas at heavyweight.
Look at Jeremy Bates a second. And
it's awful. Yeah, I know. He actually he lost to Evander Holyfield in 2006.
Like 20 losses in 10 wins or something.
26 wins, 19 losses.
It's terrible, isn't it?
Yes, but he had like 3 wins in a row or 4 wins in a row against nobodies. So yeah, it's an odd career he's had, this Jeremy Bates guy. But
Bryan has had a weird career because he had a big gap, and I mean he's always been an okay fighter. Again, I'd put him at European level.
Yeah, but he's American, isn't he? So you'd have to say he's like that sort of level, exactly. He's never beaten anyone any good. He beat Derek Rossi, but Derek Rossi's not great. He's never beaten anyone on his record that means he should have a WBA title shot, in my opinion.
He must be on the same level as Charles Martin, if not better.
He's a bit worse than Charles Martin is still top 16 in the world. Trevor Bryan is 39th in the world, right? Manuel Char, who also has his world title, he's 30th in the world.
Wouldn't Joe Joyce beat both these guys? Shouldn't Al Heyman be looking to get Joe Joyce a title shot?
Look, to be honest with you, there's a lot of guys. Otto Wallin, the guy who beat Adrian Granat, he would beat both of those guys. Tom Schwartz from Germany, he'd beat both of those guys. You'd have to say Hughie Fury would beat both of those guys quite comfortably.
What do you think about Hughie Fury's fight against Pulev? So I think that's
it's a good fight for Fury. No, Pulev's too old now. He's sat around too long. He's been too inactive. He fought Kevin Johnson. He beat Samuel Pitt. Like, he's been beating up old guys. He beat up Derek Chisora. You've got to remember with Pulev, he's been beaten up on not world-class opposition.
Yeah.
And he's been slipping in his age. So he's... How old is he now? He was born in 1981, yeah, 37,
So how?
37.
Why? I don't understand why they wheeled old Samuel Peter from the graveyard. I mean, what was that all about?
I don't know. I mean, it's the same thing with Kevin Johnson in some ways because he beat Actually, to be fair, Kevin Johnson was coming off a win when Kubrat Pulev beat him, but it wasn't a big win. It was a pretty poor win. Yeah, I don't think Pulev's got as much left as people think he has. He's tall, he's got a bit of power, but I think Huey's going to dance rings around him because Kubrat Pulev is slow now, and I
Huh.
think that's going to be the main key to the fight. Is
What I worry is the judging. That's all I'm going to say. The judging. You know,
it's
bias.
possible it could possibly go wrong in Bulgaria, but I think Huey's going to win it so convincingly it will be all right. That's my.
If he loses, where does his career go? I mean, really, he's only 23, isn't he?
If he loses to Pulev, it's not the end. It's not the end of the world. It's not a disgrace. But he would have to go back again to sort of British or European level.
I think he's one of these fighters that will learn in 5 years' time. He will be a lot better.
I
Saying
think he's gonna. Yeah, I think he's gonna be like Groves. I think he'll have one or two
he
world
will win
title
all the time,
losses
but you
before
know,
it, and then he will win one. Yeah, I think it's like that.
we look,
If you put Huey in against AJ now, AJ would
yeah.
win. But if you put Huey in against AJ in 5 years, I think Huey would have a really good
Yeah.
chance because
But,
AJ would be slower, Huey would be faster.
so, what was the point of him fighting for the British title? I found that pointless. Made no sense.
Well, it's a good title to win, and it was a good comeback fight. But other than that, yeah, it was a bit pointless. You could say the
That
same
was
thing
like,
for a Coley
but,
fighting Matty Askin.
yeah, but he should have won this British title before he fought for world title. They're doing it in the wrong order. Fury, in my opinion, you can't fight for.
They are, but they thought he was ahead. To be honest with you, if that Parker Fury fight had sold more and been more of a media buzz, I think Huey would have got the decision. I just think money speaks in boxing, and because Parker was the
But
money guy, he got the
yeah,
decision. I don't think Huey lost that fight
but
badly.
Joseph
It's
Parker,
very
there's no, he's not. They're about the same. I wouldn't even say
no.
Parker's that much better.
I would put I would say Huey's better. I think especially since you've seen Parker fight AJ and fight
Right.
Dillian White. He didn't do good in those fights at all. So I think test of time will tell. I think Huey Fury will be a more remembered heavyweight than Joseph Parker when
But
their
Joseph
careers
Parker's still a
finish.
world class fighter, you know, or is he? I mean, I don't know.
He's B plus or A. He's A minus or B plus. He can beat everybody up until the top five, and then I think any of the top five: Ortiz, AJ, Povetkin, Wilder, Dillian White, they all beat him. I think. I
I
think
mean,
that's just his. I think
in
Parker's found his level,
the
basically.
makeup of the heavyweight division now, in the next, say, in 2022, you will have
Mm,
your Nurgoviches, you'll have your Duvars, you'll have your Gormans, all that lot at the top.
yeah.
Joshua's as second fiddles, you know, and then the Tyson
I
Fury.
think I think people will be surprised by who's at the top in 10 years. I have a feeling
In
it will
5 years.
be one of two. Well, let's say in 5 years, I think it's possibly still AJ.
Hergoviches will be.
In 10 years, I think Gorman and Fury are to be watched out for. Huey and Gorman, I think they'll be in the top five still at that point, and I think Dubois will be up in the top three.
Yeah.
I think Joyce will win a world title, but in 10 years he'd be 43, so he
Yeah.
needs to get a move on.
But I think it'll be someone we've never heard of before will come along and just, you know, storm the
Very
division.
possibly. AJ
Like,
did it in lightning quick speed, didn't he? And Mike Tyson did the same thing in lightning quick speed.
I mean, there's a lot of people that will be coming up that in the next 2-3 years, you watch, someone will come up out of nowhere. You'll have a new heavyweight coming. I mean, Nick Webb didn't turn out to much. I mean, I look at Daniel Dubois and I see a bit of a, you know, a bit of a David Price about him. I don't know why. There's something about him that's not right.
I don't know. I don't think he's as easy to knock out.
I mean, Who would you say is the Audley Harrison of the generation? From what you think will happen, who do you think will be the next Audley Harrison?
I can't really see one. In terms of from British boxing or just in general?
British boxing.
There isn't really an equivalent right now, is there? So I don't know. I think if you're looking at someone who could easily get knocked out, Dubois is one of them. Okoli seems to be a bit shaky around the whiskers. I still think he's too gangly. I think he's too tall and not thick enough.
But you know, that's not. He's very overrated in terms of what he's done.
Well, he hasn't done anything yet, but so was AJ at that point. As soon as you start knocking people out in one round, you get massively hyped up, inflated.
I don't think Dubois got the talent Joshua's got. So I really don't.
No, probably not. Probably not. He didn't have the same, amateur experience. He had some, but not the same amount.
He was only 18 when he turned pro or something.
There's this guy called Cash Ali who's 26.
Oh, yeah, the Asian.
And he's 13-0, and he looks a bit suspect. He fights against
nobody. He's not that good.
Exactly. His best fight was against Kamil Sokolowski, who I think Dave Allen knocked out as well. So
Cash Ali fought, didn't he fight Audley Harrison? No, that was somebody else.
It wasn't the right one. It's hard to say who's the next Audley Harrison. We don't have a lot of big heavyweights.
Cash Ali is nothing. I've seen him fight. And he's not.
Yeah, he's not great. He's not great. He's ranked below Sam Sexton and Gary Cornish, so that tells you all you need to know. Joe Joyce, he's too big to get knocked out the same. I'd be very surprised if you see Joe Joyce knocked out with one punch. You might be able to stop him by a barrage of punches, but Joe Joyce is just too heavy set, I think, to be wiped out.
Joyce, once he gets to world level, he will get found out.
Possibly. I think he'd have I'd love to see him fight Gerald Miller, because it's two guys roughly the same sort of build, and it would be a war. Neither of them would want to take a back. It would be similar to Chisora White in some ways. It'd be a great fight.
If there's going to be an Audley Harrison, I'd pick Joe Joyce. I don't know why. There's just something about him that isn't right.
I don't think he's able to be. I don't think you'd knock him out the same way Audley Harrison used to get knocked out, though. I think he could lose.
I don't think he'll win a world title. Put it that way.
Yeah, that's fair. I think that's fair to say. I think he could. It just, if the WBA keep creating titles out of thin air, I think every heavyweight could win a world title. To be honest with you.
What will it be? The WBA aged title or the WBA special title? You know, and you can, if you've got 3 limbs, you can, if you've got 3 fingers, you can win a world title.
WBA 3-finger title. That sounds like one you steal.
WBA spasticated title. I mean, where does it end?
The WBA Intercontinental Super National Universe title is the next one I've heard.
Ridiculous.
The WBA WWE title I've heard is on the horizon as well.
For God's sake.
Right, man. We've been going for a while. Let's round it up, and we'll be back next week to discuss the fights that are going on. We've already talked about them here. And peace out, everyone. Please subscribe, leave a like, and Nathan, I'll leave the last word to you.
We'll be back next week, people.
Peace out.